Hello, everyone in the Secrets to Sleep Baby and Toddler Sleep Help group. My name is Courtney. I am a pediatric sleep consultant, and I help families get a really great night of sleep so they can enjoy the time with their little ones. Today, we are doing a live called Why Does My Baby Catnap? I'm actually about a half an hour early, so I'm sorry if you're planning to do it do it live with me today. I have been working on this live, and I just felt so inspired, and I didn't want to go and do something else for half an hour and then kind of be like, oh, right, this is what I'm doing today. So I'm inspired and I'm ready now, so I'm doing it now. And hopefully if you were planning to attend live, then you can catch the replay, okay? Just a little bit of housekeeping, just because this is the Secrets to Sleep group, and I just want to mention a few things. Okay, so I always plan the upcoming lives for the next month, a month ahead of time. So a few different lives that I have kind of in the works for next month. I usually try and do at least 4 a month. One are going to be on white noise machines. Another is going to be on the responsive settling, or another word for it is faded method of sleep training. So that's one of our gradual, gentle methods. I think it's a really good one that we can talk about. Another topic I'm going to talk about is pacifiers. And then another I was thinking was the 18-month sleep regression. Okay. I'm just trying to take topics that I think are really good topics that they come up a lot, things come up a lot. So if it's a topic that you think is a great topic and you want to be tagged in it, post below, tag me in pacifiers live or something like that, whichever it is. Tag me in all the lives if you just want to be tagged into everything, okay? But also I just want you to know that I do take your topics and your thoughts and ideas into consideration when making lives and things. So if you have a live that you think would be a really great topic, or you just have something that you just really want to know, post that below. And if it seems to be something that oh yeah, it seems like a few people want to talk about co-sleeping or something like that, or if you have a specific question that you really want answered and you want me to delve into, post that below. Live topic or live topic idea, and then post an idea, okay? So that's a little bit of housekeeping just about that, upcoming lives and things like that. Okay, so today, why does my baby catnap? So before I want to go quite into this, I just want to talk a little bit about parenting philosophies and baby sleep philosophies. It sounds a little bit funny, okay? But one philosophy that I have, I'm a pediatric sleep consultant, so obviously I have education and training in sleep. I've studied, the biology of babies and sleep and how their bodies work when it comes to sleep, okay? So that's one thing that's true. And so because of my education, and I have a lot of experience with babies, I've been a doula for about 9 years, so I've spent just tons of time with babies. I have 2 kids of my own, okay? A lot of time with babies. I have a certain philosophy that I've developed, and the philosophy is that I believe babies can sleep really well, okay? Might not sound that crazy, but it is pretty revolutionary, right? Because I talk to people all the time that are pretty convinced that babies just don't sleep well, things like that. Babies just sleep like that. That's just normal. And then my education, my experience working with babies, I've been a sleep consultant for probably a few years now, and I start working with families that have babies that don't sleep well, and then by the time we're done, kind of our 3-week program, the babies do sleep really well after that. So this is part of the reason why I have developed this philosophy, because of my education, but also my experience, okay, is that babies can sleep really well. They don't have to be, waking up frequently in the night. They also don't have to be constantly catnapping, okay? And so this is something that I think is important. I made a post earlier, I think last week. It was on nap schedules, and it was controversial nap schedule post. That's fair. I didn't go into it in depth, and this is really the live that I'm going into the depth of why I'm recommending what I'm recommending. So that's fair enough. I didn't give enough detail. But I also think philosophies come into play here. This group here is a group where my goal for this group is for us to actually have, babies that maybe don't sleep very well in the beginning, but to have, this education in pediatric sleep, and to then have babies that sleep really well by the end, right? If not necessarily leaving the group, but I actually want people to see improvement in sleep. This is not just a group where you come in and you say, here are my problems with sleep. And, maybe other moms go, that's really sad, maybe try this, maybe try that, and we just kind of stay where we're at. This is a group where we come with sleepers that are not doing well. We learn and we grow and we make changes to sleep, and the sleepers are then really great sleepers in the end. Like, that's the kind of group I want, and that's where I'm coming with like my philosophy about sleep, is that can happen if we make changes to sleep. Okay, so I'm going to give like the evidence behind why I'm suggesting. I'm not just like suggesting random things just because. But I think that this is important because this is what we're going for. Okay, not just kind of waiting it out. We're making changes, and we're having great sleepers in the end. Okay. And before I even give my recommendation for how to get your baby to stop catnapping, I'm just going to make a disclaimer as well, because there's 2 recommendations that I have, okay? 2, this thing and that thing, okay? And they actually have to be both done together. So I'm going to tell you right now, I give this recommendation to people all the time, okay? I give them 2 recommendations, and I say they must be done together at the same, it doesn't have to be done at the same time necessarily, but to see the results of our babies going from catnappers to no longer catnappers has to be done both things, okay? And then people hear what they are, and then they take one of the things and they go, okay, I'll do this one thing, okay? And then they don't do both things at the same time, and then they still have catnappers, and then they come to me and they say it didn't work. I'm like, yeah, it probably didn't. If you want your baby to stop catnapping, you have to take both of the recommendations and put them both into practice for babies to stop catnapping, okay? So that is my disclaimer. You have been told, okay? Let's talk about number 1. So my first recommendation, I'll just mention what they are just so you know, and then I'll go into it. Okay, so my first recommendation is actually to follow a set schedule as opposed to wake windows. So a 0 to 4 month old baby, we follow wake windows because they do not have a fully developed circadian rhythm yet. Okay, they do not have like a body clock day-night cycle or systems that kind of work like that. They're a little bit, they're just as they are, right? Newborn babies, 0 to 4 months old. And then 4 months and up, they have a fully developed circadian rhythm, just like you and I as adults, okay? So this is why I recommend following a set schedule. So that's 1. And then the other thing that is also needed for babies to stop catnapping is to allow babies to self-settle, okay? So I've talked about this lots. Self-settling is the baby's ability to fall asleep without parental help, without some sort of help, okay? The reason why these both need to be done is because the set schedule is kind of the magic for how babies can lengthen sleep cycles. But if you have a baby that has a sleep association, meaning that they can't self-settle, it means that they have something that can just automatically interfere with sleep. So it's kind of like what your baby needs is a set schedule, but it's going to be pretty much impossible to put a set schedule in place if you have something that makes your baby feel like they need to wake up after every single sleep cycle, right? So this is why this is not necessarily just like a simple, just do this and that. I'm not a huge fan of like quick fixes. I'm a very large fan of, putting processes in place that help our babies have really great sleep, okay? No quick fix, no Band-Aid solution. This is what your baby needs in order to stop the catnapping, okay? So we're going to go into set schedule. I'm also just going to make a note of how long it takes to put these things in place, just so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Not a quick fix. It's a this takes time sort of solution. So in order to put a self-settling strategy in place, it depends on which one you use, okay? If you use a harsh method such as Ferber, something like that, okay, it might take like 5 days to put a self-settling method in place. Ferber is like 5 days of a lot of screaming, okay? That's what that looks like. I'm a gentle sleep consultant. I specialize in more gradual, gentle methods, and most of the methods I use take, 2 to 3 weeks, and that's pretty normal for kind of what I do. A gentle method just really does mean a gradual method. It means instead of just laying a baby in bed and going, figure it out, learn how to self-settle, it means that we're providing, call it help, parental help. I'll provide, parental help while a baby's learning to self-settle. So I usually just say, I provide parental help until they're very sleepy, but not asleep. And then we gradually reduce that. That's kind of the general, method I recommend, something along those lines. And a set schedule takes about a week to put into place. If you're watching, please post below, say that you're watching, let me know that you're here, let me know if you have questions, okay? A set schedule takes a week to put into place, and I always tell people it's kind of like an art, right? It's not a perfect system, it's not easy, it's like an art, it is quite challenging, but it is the thing that allows babies to sleep long stretches as opposed to catnapping. So we'll go into it. Okay. Okay, so bedtime. All right, my bedtime is about 10:30 at night, okay? If I stay up until midnight, I'm gonna be like so tired. I'm gonna be like so overtired by then because my body clock actually knows that 10:30 is my bedtime, okay? In the same sense, if I tried to go to bed at 9 p.m., my body clock would not know that that's bedtime. I'm not gonna feel sleepy yet, right? So this is what I tell people when it comes to like nap schedules, because I have people all the time tell me my baby doesn't feel sleepy at that time. My baby refuses naps. My baby doesn't do very many naps. My baby just kind of takes constant naps, seems to be tired kind of all the time. Okay? It's because your baby has a circadian rhythm that is fully developed, and what they require is a set schedule. Like that's what their body actually requires. As opposed to, a 0 to 4 month old baby. Their body doesn't require that, and it couldn't even do that, okay? But just like if I was trying to like swap up what time I went to sleep all the time, I would probably be, really exhausted every day, okay? So with our little babies, when we're trying to just kind of go with the flow, it's kind of the same thing for them, right? They actually don't really know what time nap time is. They don't really know how long they're supposed to nap, right? This body clock thing. It's kind of like if I picked up and I moved to Germany right now, okay? I'm in Vancouver, BC area, okay? And if I didn't have a clock and I just tried to kind of figure it out, right? I probably wouldn't be able to. Anytime that I've picked up and I've moved to a different time zone, I've had to like work very hard at changing my own body clock and the way I go about sleep, because I have certain sleep needs that I have to actually align up to a clock if I've kind of, been all jostled, something like that, right? Anytime you go from a country and then you come back, you're like, you're looking at your clock and you're like, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but if I go to sleep right now, then I'm going to be up at, 2 o'clock in the morning, right? So then you're like, okay, I know I'm super tired because I'm jet lagged. I'm going to try and stretch it a few more hours just to get a little bit closer to what I know my body actually needs. This is a little bit of what it's like putting a baby on a nap schedule. We're going with what their bodies actually need as opposed to just kind of where they're at now, okay? So I'm just going to go into a little bit of how to put babies on a nap schedule, okay? So one thing to do is to actually start by waking them up at 7. I have people tell me all the time like, oh, I never wake my baby up. So you never wake your baby up, probably because your baby has challenges with sleep, and you probably feel really excited when they are sleeping, and you would never want to disturb their sleep because of it, okay? If you had a good sleeper, then you wouldn't feel so attached to that, maybe half an hour that they're sleeping in the morning, something like that, okay? The schedule can be adjusted maybe, a bit later, depending on, say, you want to have an 8 o'clock in the morning wake up to an 8 p.m. wake up. Like, it's one of those things that I don't really recommend it because I find that babies do just naturally wake up at more like, 7 or even earlier because of their body clock. But sometimes families all work with them on some of those things. So if that's something you wanted to do, jostle everything an hour later, that could be a possibility if that's where you're already at. But I'm giving my general recommendation because I'm talking to a general crowd. So I recommend waking babies up at 7. And we're going to prioritize long-term sleep habits as opposed to the amount of sleep your baby's getting right now. So even if your baby was up till 9 o'clock at night, we were going to wake the baby up at 7, right? Because we want to reset the clock. We want to start things again. We don't want to just continue with this kind of, all over the place napping, and going to bed late. We want to go, this is going to suck for this week because we're all losing sleep this week. But a couple weeks from now, sleep will be better. Okay, so that's the start of putting a baby on a nap schedule. It's by waking them up at 7 so that they are starting the schedule, so that we're not trying to put them to sleep, when their body is kind of, showing them that they have the right amount of sleep pressure, because they're not going to have the right amount if they are waking up at different times every day. If your baby wakes up earlier, say your baby is a 5 o'clock in the morning wake up baby, we don't actually want to then put our baby to nap at 7, because that tells our baby that, yes, we should continue waking up at 5 o'clock. Okay, we would actually try to stretch our baby to their normal nap time. I think I'm going to give, I think the 6 to 12 month old schedule, I don't know if I have it on the top of my head exactly correctly, but often like 9 o'clock is the first time nap for babies. Okay, so let's say 6 to 12 months. I think it's about 9 o'clock, and it's about, I think it's like 2 o'clock, something like that, 2 to 4. 7 few hours at the end of the day, 2 or 2:30, something like that, okay? I can send the nap schedule. If you want the nap schedule, just post nap schedule below, and I will send it to you, okay? What was I saying? So, yeah, that's my number 2, is to follow an age-appropriate schedule. Number 1 is to wake up your baby so that they're waking up the same time of the day, but we would ideally put them still to nap at about 9 o'clock, okay? So if your baby is, waking up at 5, we don't want to encourage the 5 o'clock wake up, so we're going to stretch as much as we can to the nap schedule so that they can actually sync to it. Obviously, if your baby wakes up at 5 and the 8 o'clock rolls around and they're like, falling asleep in your arms, then you would put them to bed. But the idea, when you start to put them on a nap schedule, you're going to do your best to try and put them to bed at the nap times in the schedule on an age-appropriate schedule, okay? If you want the schedule, post below, I can give it to you. But the point is that we're not necessarily going with what our babies are just kind of doing, what their body clocks are kind of just, figuring out. We're trying to actually, take the science and the evidence of how much sleep babies need, what's best for them, putting it into practice, getting their body clock to align to it so that they can have really great sleep. Someone posted something along the lines of, you can't make a baby fall asleep. And I think this is really interesting because it actually informs me just kind of like where people's brains are at when it comes to napping and falling asleep, okay? So my kids go to bed at 7. I don't make them fall asleep at 7, but I do put them to bed, around 7. So what that means is that, I'm a sleep consultant. Things are obviously very structured in my home when it comes to sleep. It means that they're in bed, around, for us, maybe we start bedtime at 7. It takes a bit of time to get them into the bed. Let's say 7:30, okay? My kids are ages 4 and 7, okay? It means that I put them into their bedrooms. We've done a routine. They're in, dark lighting. They have a little, red light going on, something like that, so that they're in optimal condition to fall asleep for about 7:30. That's what it means. I don't force my kids to fall asleep. In fact, if they want to lay in their beds for as long as they would like, they can feel free, but they have to be in their rooms in the darkness. Nighttime we have melatonin that helps us to fall asleep, so I don't force babies to fall asleep. I don't force my kids to fall asleep, but I set them up for success when it comes to sleep. I know how much sleep they need. I know when they should be going to bed. I put them into bed. We have really great habits in place so that they feel comfortable in their rooms on their own without me staring at them, right? Because I know that most babies want you present, and I know that's how it works. But that's where we're at with that, right? So when it comes to like making a baby fall asleep, no, we don't make babies fall asleep. We allow them to fall asleep by spending time with them, at their designated nap time. So let's say a 6-month-old baby, we're saying first nap time is 9 o'clock. That would mean that we would be cuddling them, we would be holding them, whatever it is. Like if they, start to cry, if you lay them in bed and they're not comfortable in their bed yet, that's normal. They're not used to it. If they're starting to cry, we would pick them up and we comfort them. But the idea would be that we would continue to be in our, dark environment, our calm, soothing environment, allowing them to fall asleep when it's actually biologically normal for them to fall asleep. It's actually the opposite that people are doing. People are almost forcing them to not fall asleep. They don't know they're doing that, I know. But what it is that instead of allowing them to fall asleep at the designated nap time that they really should be falling asleep at, we're taking our kids out of their quiet environment. We're putting them in this bright lit up environment. We're singing and we're talking and we're stimulating them instead of them being able to fall asleep in their beds, which is what they need to do. Okay? So this is how we start getting on a nap schedule. We keep them in their calm environment until they do fall asleep. This is the joy of like putting them on a nap schedule, when we're first doing it, it sucks, it takes a lot of time. Once they're on a nap schedule, it's very different. So when I'm done working with a family, this is what a nap looks like, okay? They take their baby, they lay them, they go, night, night. They lay them into the bed, and the baby kind of rolls around and falls asleep, okay? That's what a baby that's on a nap schedule looks like. I've had people say, but how do you make them sleep 2 hours long? I don't make them sleep 2 hours long. Once they are used to this nap schedule, let's say a 6 to 12-month-old baby, their nap times are 9 o'clock and, 2 o'clock or 2:30, something like that. We put them to sleep at 9 and 2 and 9 and 2. And we do this for a week. Their body clocks line up to this schedule, and their naps will lengthen because their bodies know that this is nap time. Like I said, it has to be done while also using a self-settling strategy, making sure that they know how to put themselves to sleep, or else they have something that just interferes with their sleep. It's going to wake them up after half an hour no matter what. Okay, so let's see what else I have in my notes. Yeah, a lot of people in our culture are actually keeping their babies up until they're overtired, and then babies are kind of like crashing, right? Like that's really what's going on. We should be putting our babies to bed when they need to be going to bed. Age appropriate nap schedule. At those times, they're going to align to it. They're going to feel sleepy at those nap times. That's very key. Yeah. And the reason why, if you feel like your baby is fussy a lot, okay? Sometimes I've talked to people and they've said that my baby's really fussy, they're not getting enough sleep. I've also talked to people who have said my baby's really happy and they just seem to want to be held all the time. Okay, this is the same thing. Your baby is overtired and maybe they have a more calm temperament, so they're not just like screaming. My son, just if he was tired, he would just start crying and screaming. There wasn't a lot in between that, right? But someone with a more calm temperament, they might just be, calm and wanting to be held a lot. They're clingy, right? Okay, this is an overtired little one. They're not getting enough sleep. This is why I recommend nap schedules. When we're putting a nap schedule into place, say 9 o'clock is our first time for a nap, and we just start the process, they're going to continue catnapping because right now they're catnappers, right? So that's why I always tell people that it takes a week of time to put the nap schedule in place, and you're doing the best that you can. So if your nap schedules are 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock, you're trying 9, you're trying 2. If you put your baby to sleep at 9, well, they're not used to this nap schedule yet. They're going to take until 10 o'clock to maybe fall asleep. This is not screaming and crying. This is snuggling and cuddling, okay? So that's the difference here. We're helping them. We're going to help them until they fall asleep. Say they fall asleep at 10 o'clock. They're going to do their cat nap because they're catnappers. This is what they're used to. They're going to sleep till, let's say, 10:30, maybe 10:40, okay? And then they're going to wake up, okay? So if they're a 9 o'clock nap from a 6 to 12-month-old baby, they're supposed to hypothetically sleep for 2 hours. In the beginning of their sleep for like 30-40 minutes. That's normal, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep them as close to their nap schedule, time as possible. Let's say it's 2 o'clock. Okay, we're going to try to keep them to 2 o'clock. They might not be able to do that. They might be really fussy and tired by 1 o'clock, right? So I always tell families like, okay, if your baby's like falling asleep in your arms, put them into bed, right? But the idea is that each day we're trying to get closer and closer to the set schedule so that their body clock can align to it, so that they can, have these really wonderful naps. Their body clock will align to it, feel sleepy at the time, sleep long, and it will be so different than before. This is one of those things that as a sleep consultant, I hear things all the time, okay? This is parents' opinions just on what they experience, that babies just sleep like this. Babies just catnap, okay? So this is where I actually want to shift our thinking. No, babies catnap because we're not working with their circadian rhythm and what their body clock actually needs. Okay? This is because we as a culture, we don't have just general kind of education on pediatric sleep, and we as parents, we're just trying, right? We're just doing what we can. We're trying to do sleep cues, we're trying to, do wake windows. We found this piece of information on the internet, everything's contradictory, everything says the opposite, okay? This is so challenging for me as a sleep consultant because I work with families that, in the beginning, they have catnappers, and in the end, they have 2-hour-long nappers that are sleeping in their beds, and, we didn't use horrible crying methods, okay? This is where I'm like, babies are just like this? The answer is no. Babies that are not on nap schedules and don't know how to connect sleep cycles, they're like this. They catnap. Doesn't have to be this way. I had someone post something that they thought putting a baby on a nap schedule causes undue stress. To me, this means that we think that this is like an arbitrary thing, just put them on a schedule. But it's not arbitrary. This is actually how we work with our babies' circadian rhythms. This is how we work with their body clocks. What's best for their biological needs is actually a nap schedule, just like it is for mine, okay? My alarm clock goes off at 7 o'clock in the morning. If one day it went off at 6, I would be so tired, right? If one day I slept until 11, I would probably be a wreck. It's the same with babies. We have to actually go with their biological needs, not what we think is culturally normal, okay? So culturally normal is just to go with the flow and do what you want. What our babies need, it's a nap schedule, okay? I think that this is such a challenging one because I know that moms, we experience a lot of pressure and it's stressful sometimes. And, you know, what I'm encouraging is not even easy. I flat out said, if your baby doesn't know how to self-settle, then it's not going to work either. So, like, keep that in mind, right? But I'm just helping, like, people know that what causes undue stress is actually babies that catnap, babies that need to be rocked to sleep, you know, babies that are refusing naps, babies that are fussy all the time, babies that wake up constantly in the night. Like, those to me, like, from my experience as someone who talks to a lot of moms and a lot of families that are not getting a lot of sleep, like, those things to me cause a lot of undue stress, not following a nap schedule. If we thought nap schedules were arbitrary and that it was just like so that we could follow a trend, yeah, that would cause a lot of undue stress. But it's actually the key piece to the puzzle that is causing your little ones to have really bad daytime sleep. Okay, here's how it looks in my world as a sleep consultant, okay? This is my philosophy on what I think that we need as adults and how our babies should and can be sleeping. Okay, our babies, so let's say a 6 to 12 month old baby, they should be having 2-hour naps, okay? This is how the families I work with, this is what they look like in the end, okay? That means that their 9 o'clock nap, you know, maybe they drop their older kids at school, they come home, they put their first baby down for their 9 o'clock nap, okay? 6 to 12 month old baby. That means that at 9 o'clock they spend, you know, maybe an hour, maybe they spend, you know, showering, painting their nails, having some self-care time, you know, maybe then spend the next hour of time, you know, folding laundry, something like that, you know, getting some housework done, you know. Then their baby is going to be awake for a few hours. Then they can actually spend hands-on time with their baby, you know, really great quality time with their baby, you know, going out for walks where their babies are actually awake and looking around and seeing the birds as opposed to sleeping, right? Which they're not enjoying the walk because they're sleeping. You know, spending that quality time with their kids. That's what's really important to me, is feeling like we can actually like manage like this stage of our lives when we have babies. I know that having a baby, being in that baby stage is challenging, but I actually feel like it doesn't have to be like this horrible thing that sometimes it can be if you have a baby that just like sleeps on you all the time and you can't get laundry done and you haven't showered in a week, right? So, you know, then maybe for the next nap, you put your baby, you know, to bed at, you know, 2:30, something like that, if you have a 6 to 12 month old baby. And then your baby sleeps in bed for, you know, 2 hours independently. You know, maybe get some more, you know, housework done or whatever it is you need to do. Maybe you do some dinner prep so that, you know, at 4:30 when your baby wakes up, you know, you can, you know, get some things like, again, kind of like you can spend time with your baby. Your spouse comes home. Maybe you can actually put some dinner on. It's already kind of like prepped and then you just throw it together. You know, you're not stressed. You're not scrambling at this time. Like, these things are actually so important to me because I see this all the time with my clients. It's possible. It's always what we go over of like, you know, because putting, you know, changes to sleep in place is really hard. It's challenging. I tell that to people all the time. When they come and join the 3 Weeks to Better Sleep program, I'm like, welcome to boot camp, okay? Welcome to a time where we're gonna work really hard, you know, put sleep changes in place. It's gonna be challenging, but 3 weeks from now, you can be, you know, painting your nails, you know, getting the dishes done, cooking dinner, you know, and then if you have your babies going to bed at, you know, 7 o'clock, 7:30, and, you know, if we're not doing this huge fight all night long, you know, we're not exhausted from waking up constantly, that changes our lives. Like I've had clients say, it changes my life that, I can just lay my baby in bed and she just rolls over and she goes to sleep at 7, or 7:30, because people need to spend time with their spouse in the evening, right? Like that's important too. We can't just neglect some of those other things, right? So this to me is really important. Prioritizing sleep is really important, not just the short term, and that extra half an hour of sleep that we get in that morning right now. It's the long term, those sleep habits that we put in place that help our babies to sleep really well, so they have long naps, they have naps at set times where they feel sleepy, so we're not fighting them to fall asleep, so they just sleep well, and we can get some things done, and we can just really enjoy the time that we have with them during this baby stage. Like that's what I'm really passionate. Okay, let's see if there's anything else, if I forgot it in my notes. Okay, I don't think I did. Yeah, I think that's like the main thing that's really important to me. So this is where I go into, like, if that's you, like if you are like, wow, Courtney, that sounds like a dream. Like I can't even imagine that. I had one client, they said, my baby will never, I said, sleep 2 hour long. She's like, my baby only sleeps 20 minutes. There's no way she could. Into the 3 weeks to better sleep program, 2 days in, her baby took a 2 hour nap. She thought it was just like some sort of like magic. It's not magic. We're just working with your baby's circadian rhythm. We're going with her sleep needs and what she needs. And what she needs is a set schedule, okay? So if you're saying in your head, like, my baby could never, it's because you've never done this, okay? Like I said, it all needs to be done with a self-settling method. If your baby needs to be rocked to sleep or breastfed to sleep, or, if you have a 4 to 8 month old that uses a pacifier, these are all things that we can work on. We can change these habits so they can sleep really well. So if you're interested and you want to make changes to sleep, you're one of the people who are like, you know what? Like, I want to prioritize sleep in my family. I want to have a home that we feel like is, like not just like struggling anymore, but we're thriving. Then post, sleep call below, and we can get on a sleep call. We can talk about the 3 weeks to better sleep program. We can talk about what methods I recommend. I use gentle methods. These are my preferred type of methods. So if you're like skeptical because you don't want a baby screaming and crying, like neither do I. If you don't want, if you're a co-sleeping family and you don't want to stop, that's totally fine. It's not about co-sleeping anyways. Okay, so if those are some things that are important to you, you want to have this picture that I've painted out. Like, this is what families look like when they're done the 3 weeks to better sleep program. So you could totally have that, and I can even set you up with some people and they can tell you that, that's what some of their lives look like right now. Okay, so my name is Courtney, and I like to help families with sleep. And yeah, I hope that's at all helpful for you. If you have questions about any of the sleep strategies, please post them below. And if you want to get on a call and talk about the 3 weeks better sleep program, that's what I'm there for, okay? Nice chatting with you. Bye.